Well, hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz,
And I'm Tina Lokkbakk. Welcome to Retired.
the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new tread, new wheels that move us to our next adventure.
Sue, today's topic, I'm so glad you're willing to talk because I kept sending you like multitudes of texts about this book that I'm reading called Linchpin by Seth Godin. And for people that don't know who Seth Godin is, he's a very famous author who focuses on how best to market things. And he has done a lot in terms of business himself and all the things that he's learned. And he's very much progressive, open-minded, do it differently kind of thinking guy. And as I'm reading this, he talks about education in our educational system and how it's not congruent with what's happening out in the world. Like we're still stuck teaching in an archaic way. So I think that we have some good things to talk about today.
Well, as two retired teachers, people who have left education, after a long time of working within the system, granted, it's in the bubble of our little community here. We have some opinions. And so we hope that our listenership, especially those of you who are teachers or retired teachers, are interested and maybe even contact us about your feelings about education. So
Please.
right.
So I want to start off with the Industrial Revolution. So being the history buffs that we used to be all agrarian. Everything was based on, animals and food and surviving within a community. And once the Industrial Revolution hit, it changed our focus on work. That's how cities ended up being built, because there would be a factory that could mass produce and we needed workers. So everybody started to leave farmland and go into building things, right? Mass producing things. And as we're seeing 200 some odd years later, our factories are kind of changing, right? We're getting replaced by machines and a different way of doing things, yet we still have workers that just follow the rules. And that part hasn't changed. And so what I found interesting in this book is its view on education, because our system, and this is one of the reasons I had to leave, because I saw it happening, where you're supposed to follow kind of a script, a one size fits all. And what I learned was all our kids are not a one size fits all. Every human is totally distinctly different. But yet we're supposed to all sit for a prescribed amount of time, and we're supposed to learn things dutifully, politely, and memorize things that really have no relevance in the day-to-day lives of many of us, right? So I think one of the problems that I had was students that could have an extreme talent in something that didn't matter according to what's important. And what is important now is that we teach algebra at a younger age. So that I don't know why. So I haven't quite figured this out. Why we have to force things that most people will never use to be learned, when we could nurture kids to go further in areas that they have their strengths in, that they could offer to the world, instead of conforming them. So I think about, I had these twins. They were incredible artists. Like my mouth would drop in like the 20 minutes they weren't listening to me and getting lost year after year because all they wanted to do was draw and couldn't follow instructions because they were into their drawing. I saw them suffering in school, where it was recommended by some teachers that they get, tested for a learning disability. Yet here they are, extremely talented. And yet they're having to learn algebra for what reason, I'm not sure, So there's a misfit, I think, in all kids are to conform, whether they have different talents or not. I'll start there. Your thoughts?
Well, I'll push back on all of this.
Oh, I knew this would be a spicy day.
Well,
Yes.
here's what I will say, and I'm pretty clear. I think it on my basic ideas of what education should be. First of all,
Oh,
there needs to be public education, and that needs to be enshrined and
I agree.
empowered, and it must be, every educational system must be dynamic. If it's not dynamic, then you're going to be behind the times at all times. And
Thank
so,
you.
and that dynamic system goes along with and kind of previews the world as it changes. And so, but it always needs to be research based. You can't just willy-nilly say, oh, I have this idea, let's embody it, let's do it. And so much of our public school is, it's a state-run institution. It's run by then there's a federal layer, but then it's mostly
Correct.
state-run. Then it goes down to the counties. Then it goes down to the cities or the district of where the kids go to school. And then there's the site council. So none of these people have to have any knowledge of education
Oh,
to be
gosh.
impaneled there.
Let's just start there.
And I would say people do come with their best hearts, their best intents, their ideas, and
Yes.
they're caring about their kids, they're impassioned, and that's great. When programs are implemented that are not research based, now you can't research something that's innovative and new, but you can research. You can start a pilot program and research that along the way. Everything needs to be done that is not just some crazy, strange idea that's in
Agreed.
that, but it needs to be found. It has to be founded in educational pedagogy. Okay, then you also need to fund education. The funding of education should not be something that you have to fight over, squabble over, pit people against each other.
Oh,
There
God.
need to
What a
be
concept.
education, different kinds of education that's available to people, and it is funded. If nothing else, I mean, you're funding wars, you're funding military. There's a need for that. You're funding roads and bridges. There's a need for that. They're funding a lot of other things that are not needed, and yet education is always a struggle. You've got to fund education, which means paying a professional salary to educators. You also need to empower those educators to have some kind of authority. Authority in education has just whittled away to
Ooh,
the point where
okay. Mm-hmm.
to the
I
point
want you to
where
go deeper into that, would you?
no,
And
okay,
when you get there.
when you the authority must, it's not like a blind authority. These are people who are trained, who are caring, who are impassioned to take care of children, keeping everything student focused always. And that authority to we should not be having to teach and manage behavior. You come with the basic civility to how to interact in a civil society, and that's what part of what education does is to train people how to interact in a civil society. So that needs to be a given. And as I said, you always got to keep it student focused. So those who've got their advocates behind them, the wealthy and the informed, great. They need to be protected and encouraged. And the kids who are at risk, maybe low income, immigrant families, people who don't know the system or haven't participated in it, need to also be equally focused upon. And that should be a given. So those things have to be a given. And so when we say, oh, education is failing us, darn tootin' right, because we haven't implemented those changes along the way to protect education. Education shouldn't be also just like laughed at and saying, "Oh, it's a useless waste." No, it's not. I mean, when it was first implemented in our country, way back in the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1647, when they sat down and said, okay, every town that has 50 families needs to have an elementary school. And the idea is you're sending your kids to elementary school, and it's based on when they could be away from the farm and
Mhm.
their duties and so forth, which is also education, which is also
Oh, that's a
massively
beautiful
important.
way to look at that, Sue. Yes, you're right.
Then the kids go to school, they learn to read, and in those days the purpose was to read the Bible. It was Puritans. They wanted
Oh,
their kids to learn how to read. Math was very, not so much, just very incidental, which you'd also learn those math skills at home too, because in theory you're going to see your family economy happening. Granted, back then it wasn't so much money, it was more about bartering, which is another important skill, being able to do that marketing you're talking about.
mm-hmm.
But um you've got to uh, people in our world today, and you can argue with me all you want. Times are changing. I understand. This is understanding that as a given. You have to know how to read. You have to know how to write. You have to know
Correct.
how to talk in public. You need to be able to talk to each other. You need to speak. So you need to speak a language. You need to speak it well. You need to speak maybe multiple languages. You need to know how to use technology. You need to know a lot of things in today's society that are given that are the what was the word you used? It was you were saying that they were conforming,
Automatons.
conforming. Well, we need these basic skills. You need to know how to manage money. You need to have some physical fitness and physical health. Those are required skills in life for everyone. And that is a way to conform. You've got to, if you're going to participate in society, you've got to make some concessions, if you will. It makes it sound like a bad word, or conform in some way. I'm not saying kill or dampen it, artistic people, or people who move a lot, or just think and don't do a lot of writing and so forth. I am saying that if you are a part of society, these are things that you do need to know, at least at a certain level, like
Correct.
the basic elementary school. Secondary needs to look really
Correct.
different. Secondary needs to look very different.
Correct.
Okay, so that's my rant. I wonder if
Well,
anyone's still
sadly,
listening.
I was getting excited because I thought, okay, we're going to have some controversy here. And I hate to say it, this has happened once again. I agree.
Well,
I
it's
can't argue with you on any of these points. I agree with all of them. And in fact, I could go to each one actually deeper
right.
because I agree with you.
We're only 10 minutes into our talk here today, but you know, I think what gets me, and you can hear it in my voice, is
Hmm.
when we have people who so when we talk about education in the public world, not everyone has a full understanding of what public education is, or what it does, or what it provides, or what it should, or the acknowledgement that it's not perfect. In fact, there's a lot of suffering and problematic education programs going on. Tell me that's not the same for every part of society, that things are not
That there
perfect.
isn't.
Okay.
Correct.
So it needs to be an ever more improving uh,
Yes.
profession, just like
Changing and
everything else.
adaptation to the
And,
times.
and maybe people feel entitled because they've been through the education system themselves, and they have their own view on how well it did or how well it did not do.
Right.
Um, and and that's not invalid. That's valid. That informs how you move forward. And at the same time, you've got to do so in a way that's organized and thoughtful. You don't just throw things on a wall and the spaghetti on the wall and see if it sticks. You've got to have some research, some thought put into it. And you've got to be mindful of the whole community. This is the part that you can say, oh, well, then leave me alone and let me educate my own children the way I want, with all my money and all my assets and everything. Yes, and because you have the right to do that if you want to. In most states, I mean, you can do
Right.
your homeschooling. Go ahead, go for it.
And that
And
also frightens me because many of the
mhm,
people that choose that may not even be home doing the thing they're supposed to do. I know that we check in, but I don't know that that many. There are some that will be excellent teachers of their own children, but there are some who aren't educated themselves.
Well,
So
what
how
that,
is the blind going to lead the blinder?
yeah, and then what that does is really cut you off from
The world.
society, the society, not just your world and your little part of it, but society. And if you're going to live in society and participate and get and be interdependent, you've got roads, you've got food, you resources and specialists in this job and that job that you avail yourself of. If you participate in this, then you have to participate in this as a civil person. Yeah. That's, you know, yeah. So, and I get this. Yes, we're not the industrial age anymore. That has changed. And the industrial age left a lot of people behind and left a lot of children behind. And education is very personal. Everyone brings their personal experience to it. And some educational systems, kids' souls have been crushed. And
Yes.
and that's not okay either. So there needs to be a better design for alternatives and for ever changing. I mean, I remember when we first started, there was no technology like, computers did not exist in the classroom. I remember it took so long for us. And that's the other thing. We got left behind. Education got left behind. Even in this affluent community, we didn't have
Yes.
computers for the longest time. And I remember I was teaching about programming uh, before we even had computers like in a computer lab or a laptop or anything. I was doing it with on paper, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can learn a lot that way, but you've so education needs to be up with the times. If you want us to be forward thinking, you've got to be up with the times. Yeah. And sorry, you hit another button. When you talked about having to memorize, memorization is a massively important skill. So, should you waste time memorizing things that aren't going to help you or you anticipate maybe won't be helpful, that wouldn't be very efficient. However, just the act of memorization is going to strengthen that part of your brain. Okay, so worst case scenario, all you did was strengthen your brain for memorization. How we use memorization all the time. We use that for basic math skills. We use that for understanding where we are in the world, map, location, names and cities. You have to know people's names. We used to know our phone numbers. Kids nowadays don't know phone numbers of their parents because it's all programmed into their phone. They don't know that. You've got to memorize, and there are different ways of memorizing. It doesn't have to be that it kills your soul. Like I remember getting my soul killed with memorizing multiplication tables. But nowadays they do a chants and they do songs, and it's so innovative and it's fun, and it's going to be in their little brain for a long time. And you're learning different ways to memorize. You've got to memorize. Just arguing about that. Okay, so I had my rant.
I have so much to say. I think I want to put Gigi downstairs and lock her in a room. I don't know, but now she's quiet. It was
Lock away Gigi.
difficult to hear.
When we first started this podcast, Tina,
Yeah,
we acknowledged that Gigi was in the room,
true.
and she's been a witness of this pretty much the whole time.
That's
So,
true.
our listeners, all of our many listeners, all know and love Gigi. So, it's
Okay,
okay.
let her be.
Yeah, and we've also your helicopter sounds and your outdoor the sounds out your window are part of this podcast. It's just the way it is. It's okay. It's who we are. It's our brand.
Okay. Wow, so much to unpack, and I'm thinking like we could go and spend an entire day on private versus public. I am 100% on board with you that I'm not saying to be done with education. You've said so many things like the chanting to memorize timetable, and I'm with you on memorization. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against that. You're right. That in itself is a skill, but as I'm going into this marketing and learning about money in a different way, it's, for example, like when you're in high school, you start learning a little bit about economy, like what is the GNP and import export and just basic things and interest rates. But we don't sit down and really teach kids about investing of money, options to invest money, how to make money with your money. It's like we still have a system in place where the rich will continue to have this knowledge of things that the poor don't, because we don't teach that in school. So instead, we're saying every kid shall go to college, which we know is not true, nor should every kid go to college.
Right.
And yet, that's one of the things that I don't even know which set of politicians decided that that should be the case. And I've always disagreed. You need a skill set when you graduate, whether it's a skill set to go on to college or a skill set to pursue a trade. You do need skills, but there
Mm-hmm.
are basic skills that we don't teach our kids. And I still think it's a way of keeping people in the dark. And so,
Absolutely. I mean, just the idea of sex ed too. I mean, if you keep kids in the dark about how their own body operates, you've changed their world. You've
or
de-
stopped it.
you've impacted their world. There are consequences to not understanding how your body works.
I guess the core of what I wanted to talk about today was how we have produced people who just want to get the instruction manual and do the thing the job says to do,
Mm-hmm.
which is enforced by management, and of which there's very few that go into management. Like I read something where the workers make like 20% and the managers make 80%. And so the goal is to make these people in a cog who could be replaced ready to take the job that the manager has prescribed. So I think that's why most people, and it's not just for the industry, even our white collar jobs, as we've been learning, it's come to this job, sit in your cubicle, do your thing, and don't ask questions, don't be inventive or innovative. You just follow the rules and do the thing. And if you can't do that thing, then there's 20 other people who can do your job.
That's what education has turned into.
Right. That's what I wanted to get at
Well, so
today. That's the
just in
focus.
our lifetime, that has changed. That has changed, and that is a political movement to to disempower public school education, because within our lifetime, within my whole career serving in the same district, that has changed. It's
Yes.
going from a lot of innovation,
Yes.
teaching to
Thank
individuals,
you.
all kinds of creative programs, and excitement and fun in learning. It's not perfect.
It's
There are
right.
mistakes. Things happen along the way. Not everyone has a wonderful experience, but it's ever changing and working towards making that a good experience for people. Different than these are the number of minutes you're going to spend on this piece of curriculum, and here's the papers you're going to use and how you're going to use it. Hurry, do it now. And there's no room for anything else. Yes, that has changed, and that is a directed political attack on public school education.
So I'll use this example and then pull back to the cog, even within our system for teachers.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct,
Because
Sue.
we
Thank you.
become cogs, yeah.
We have become the cogs.
Yep.
And it started with me. And I think this was really the turning point of thinking. I mean, there were many things, but this could have been one of the biggest ones. Was we were given this, and I always said when I heard other people in poorer districts have to do this, everybody's so concerned about the appearance of the exams that all kids have to take, mind you, in April, although our curriculum is set up to teach till June. But that's another story. So we have 7 months to teach 9 months, and everybody's got this pressure from the top down, from the down up, to make sure that our children do better each year, because now the numbers are floated, flashed at staff meetings. This is what's wrong. This is what's great at our school. It was even in meetings where in our district, Sue, I couldn't stand it, but it's like, well, this school did this ranking, this school did that ranking. So it was like this competition in a way, even within. So there's this constant pressure, like we have to be at a certain point. Now we're not recognized. Now we are recognized. Okay. So to make sure that we're all on the same page to take this test in April, now we're going to do, let's say, the English curriculum. And when I left, it was everybody is going to be doing for the first 3 weeks what this book says to do. And it even had, for the world that does not teach listening to this, all the words that we're supposed to say. We say this, the kids do that. We do this, the kids do that. There was absolutely no creativity, and it was a push, push, push. You will follow this curriculum. Every school is going to. Now, some teachers didn't. Some teachers did, because some of us are still fighting back, right? So whether you agreed with this curriculum or not, that was what it was going to be.
Yeah, teaching to the test, and a test that doesn't test what you're hoping to accomplish is not a good is a problem to start with. And these are some of the things that need to be redesigned and rethought and researched as we go along. I
Well,
agree.
and so now let's go back into the cog. So I think that's the thing that's changed even more, is now we're being forced to be this automaton as well. Here's
Mhm.
the instruction manual.
Mhm.
You will follow it.
Mhm.
You will give the kids a test. The kids are going to follow it. And all the creativity is gone. The fun, the art, the things, it just seemed like it was eroding. And it is down to the minute, because we would sit there and have to calculate, well, we have X amount of time for PE that we have to do. We have to do it, over a certain amount of, and there are certain things that make sense. We need PE. We do need to have, amounts of minutes. I get this. But this cog concept is in order for people to continue to just show up and not think.
You're right.
Now, I did see in math, I do appreciate this part, because I did see some changing in math where they wanted you to come at it from different ways in order to get to the same answer. And, there are different ways to get to the same answer in math, you know?
Mhm.
So I did see some shifting in the math where we could allow for a different way to come to the answer, which is thinking. And I did see our district have like cute little posters with a light bulb where they want kids to do more thinking. So, but I feel like it's like they want you to have the kids think. You're forced to do the curriculum that they're saying is going to create the thinking. And not every kid, it's like we need to be allowed the wiggle room, because one size of that curriculum doesn't meet all kids' needs. And I think that's where, as educators in a classroom, we see this. And so we try and come at it from different ways to try and capture all the kids
Right.
and all of their learning
It
modalities.
changes each year, the type of kid, because everyone's so
Yes, every year.
individual. And so when you need to trust your educators to see their students, to know their students, to give them the time to learn, to know about them, and to know about them at a more somewhat personal level, at least,
Yeah.
so that they can serve those kids. Because that's what your wish is as a teacher, is to serve the children, and help them with their learning, to facilitate their learning. You know, this year you might have a child who cannot read, and they're in intermediate. Well, then that's what you're going to tackle. And if you can't let them access the curriculum because of that, or you exclude them from all the things, there's got to be more creative ways to do things. And so, yeah, we can't be cogs. Okay, you're sitting there talking about cogs. You know what I'm doing? I'm sitting here writing a lesson plan. Oh my God, I was thinking, okay, this would be a great theme for the school year, especially for like a intermediate student. Are you a cog? The whole theme for the year is, what are cogs? You could do all kinds of hands-on science and understand how a cog works, the power and the knowledge that comes from it. It's an amazing thing to have a cog. It really is. And yet, if you're the cog, I mean, metaphor now, if you're the cog, how does that feel? What if your cog doesn't fit into the machine that you need to be working on? I mean, so you could do all kinds of cross curriculum instruction based on the concept of a cog. All the powerful and good things come out of it, all the negative and limiting things that come from it.
So
You're
I'm
just
gonna
looking at me
hop
like,
into
why are you?
something different. No, no, actually, it's that's the creative part, Sue.
Yeah.
That is the part that we loved, is to be able to create. We're creators, and I think most teachers at heart are creators. Now, there are some that aren't, that are perfect cogs, and they have been my examples of everything I did not want to become. And for instance, when I first started teaching and I had my master teacher, okay, class, open up your page to 22, do exercises A, B, and C. I'll do an example. We'll write it on the board. I mean, come on, foreign language, really? That's so bad. Then I went off into my high school world with archaic books, and that they wanted me to do the same. And yet it killed just about everyone. Then I go back to teaching up here for that brief window. They were using the same book I taught 30 years prior, school level, same thing. They want you, and I was being pushed to do this, to be a cog where anybody could come in. Who needs a language skill if you're just going to follow the book, look at the instruction manual, play the tapes on day 1, as it says, day 2, day 3? That's a cog, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even in learning a foreign language. And yet what really was upsetting is, again, based on what you were saying, research. Research says if you hear the language over and over and repeat it over and over, it's going to get in. And that's how you really learn language as a kid. You hear it again and again, and finally you'll produce it because it's in there. But yet we're teaching a disconnect. We're teaching a rote thing. We're teaching a cog, right? The kills and
So
say.
again, this is where, I mean, I can look at the example you just gave and look what's behind it. Okay, so if that teacher is a cog and has just accepted that they've been beaten down or instructed to do it that way, and they're happy to do it, or they've been beaten down and they've been made to do that, and limited them. Look behind all of that. Who is providing the books and demanding that they use those books? Why are the books 30 years old? Because it's not well funded. There's a funding problem here. There's so many things behind it. Who is in charge of that? So you're the people in charge of education and public school education don't necessarily have to have, in fact, most often do not have instruction in what it is to teach, what teaching is. And so there's a problem there. Something has to change so that there's a filter that you've got these wonderful ideas of parents and community and culture outside of school that needs to be filtered through educationally sound methods and materials and everything else. And behind it, it needs to be funded like you care. I mean, a lot of lip service is given to caring about children. Our country doesn't care about our children. If you can't look at the first day of school and those kids being shot in their church on the first day of school, oh my goodness. I mean, and that's just the first one of this school year. God forbid. Yeah, get me going on that then too. We don't care about our kids enough. And yeah, I have to just leave it there because I'm going to go crazy.
I'm going to throw something that's kind of in the same vein, but especially the last few years working with my other colleague, and we would come up with a lesson. And that was the fun part, right? We create this lesson and we'd ask each other, how did it go? And, as teachers, we all spend the summer getting renewed hope that it's going to be an amazing year. And then you create this perfect lesson and you go into the class, because now we're under the gun, by the way. If you have to follow every page the way we're supposed to and get the tests prepared by April, time becomes an important thing. And so even though we create this lesson, we realized that we were always falling behind, making us feel like failures as teachers. But it's because what we forgot was the humanity, and that people are people and kids are people. So, for instance, you have it on your lesson plan, this is going to take 10 minutes. But you forget over the summer until you walk in the room and say, all right, guys, take out your book, open up to page 18, get your paper ready and your pencil. And you forget that that could be a 5-minute process to get everybody ready and settled in when you transition, let's say from math to English. And so you don't factor that in. And then you start realizing just kids are kids. Some things happen where, maybe, I don't know, the kid's desk broke. And so he landed on the floor. And so now you've got to get the custodian on the line. You got to get the kids settled down. You got to find another desk. You've wasted 15 minutes to no one's fault. But all those things impact when you're on such a tight schedule to get to the next thing. And I think that I'm bringing this up because that also is another cog thing. We're expected to work in a certain amount of time, but we're dealing with humans and life happens, and we forget to factor that in. Going back to the system up above, the system up above says this shall be done, and they're disconnected because they haven't been in a classroom to see what happens when the desk breaks, or it takes that long even for a 12-year-old to get on the same page when you have 35 students in a classroom. So there's a disconnect between reality, which then I'm just going to say, why are we hiring or allowing lawmakers to make the laws, implement the laws? It's like telling a math person to go in and tell lawyers how to proceed in the court.
Yeah.
It's as much as a disconnect to that. We should have teachers, and maybe that's what you do with retired teachers, the ones that still really love the idea of education, and let retired teachers, if they want, be the ones to implement and discuss and create the rules for the kids because they've been there.
No, you need all your stakeholders, and this is the whole system needs revamping. Where again, you're going to have public schools the way they're set up. Those site councils have a lot to say about how things are done. Those school boards have a lot of ways, a lot of power in how things are done, what literally is taught in the classroom or not. Then your superintendent. You need to have people. There's got to be a way to dovetail the concern, interest, and value of the outside community with the educational community. But you've got to have educators operating from operating the school and implementing and it needs to be respected, and it needs to be funded. A lot of this is all about funding. When you're fighting for a few little dollars, and it's crazy how people become sharks. It's in how they attack others, and you forget it's all about the kids. And then when those kids walk into the classroom, their desk may break, but more likely they're going to have some incident at recess they need to process,
Right.
and so you're doing that as well. And
The humanity.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And it goes back to that. Thank you for bringing that up. And again, when you're forced to follow this really tough schedule, and you're right, you've got this handful of kids, there was a crisis out on the playground, and yeah, it's important to factor in the time to create that safe environment before you go on to learn the math. Like there's a shutdown in kids too, where if you don't address the big elephant in the room, you can't pretend that you can go on learning because they're still back at recess, when there is something big that
Well,
happens.
not even big. I mean, just friendship issues
Well,
or
big to them.
well, right. And what parent doesn't their heart break or they get angry when your kid comes home and they said,
Yeah, devastating.
I scraped my knee and no one cared, or
Yeah,
my friend didn't want to include me in that game, and I didn't. No one helped me figure this out. That stuff is real, and that's part of learning too. But there has to be time, and you
right.
can't be a cog and do that, and it has to be properly funded. That's the other thing is, if you're trying to manage all these things and the numbers are big, and it's an impossible task. So there's a lot of things that need to be redrafted. They don't have to wipe out the whole system like
Right.
they're intending to do. like's being done right now in so many other areas of our society, where let's just destroy the whole department of this and the department of that, and we're going to redo we're going to ignore the Constitution, just destroy it all, and bring it back how you want.
Instead of implementing changes.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Now let's pack up this week's episode in the trunk.
Ride shotgun and be a part of our adventure by clicking on the plus sign to subscribe and follow our show. This will help our ratings and, more importantly, inspire us to keep creating fun and engaging content. We would love to hear from you in the comment sections, or email us at retiredpodcastnewtread@gmail.com. Use the fast track lane by sharing episodes with friends, family, and anyone who would like to join us on a road trip through re-tirement.
Be sure to check the show notes for links and contact information. Retired is chauffeured by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It is produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me too. Buckle up and tune in next week so that you won't miss your chance to join the Retired Road Trip.